I think it is to some extent, and to many people and many organizations. However, it's a key factor which we need to focus on in order to show that we're able to operate tomorrow and make sure that we're delivering tomorrow what we should be delivering to our stakeholders. It really is about the fact that it's not just one dimension that our organization brings in, but we look at it through a number of different lenses. And so really you look at business, your business, and your ability to be able to deliver what you have to deliver. We can bring the various capabilities to that environment to make sure that we're looking at your whole solution as opposed to just parts of it. It is an abstract term, and it can be, really so many things. It has so many definitions in its own right. But the important thing is to measure it in terms of what changes. And so that's what we look at. We look at what actually changes, and we measure outcomes, and we put a value on outcomes. And that's the challenge, is to be able to measure both social outcomes, economic outcomes, and environmental outcomes. Well, for all of us, and specifically within our context in South Africa, where we don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow, our ability to be able to look into the future as much as we can and ensure that, as best we can, that we will be able to operate normally tomorrow is fundamental. So it's critical. It's become a key component of running a business. Definitely is, but that's just part of it. And so we need to have an understanding as to when our environment changes and when we change our environment, what, for example, are the social impacts of the changes on that environment. As an example would be in the fishing industry. If your environment is changing, where your schools of fish are moving up the coast, what happens to the community in that environment? What happens to that society? And you need to understand, therefore, where to position your next factory, as an example, and understand what the social implications are of that. We measure sustainability in terms of the measurement of changes in outcomes, and we have a look at impact. We measure impact, and we translate it into financial terms so that we can talk about, well, what has changed for you as a key stakeholder from a financial perspective, and then you look at all the key stakeholders and understand their respective different changes, and then you're able to do some comparisons and be able to say, well, how do we in fact align the various stakeholders? How do we understand that for the community it means one thing, for business it means another thing, for the local business sector in an environment it means another thing, and how do we in fact get them to understand those different impacts across that group? I think that the businesses which have been running for longer periods of time need to be more concerned about sustainability. New businesses are very often thinking about their strategy. Only plan for it in a way by anticipating risks, anticipating things that are going to change, and then being able to see how do you actually address those components. And so sustainability is not just really one dimension. It's about having a look at your full environment and understanding what's going to be changing potentially. It could well be new competitors coming in. It could well be a whole change in the market. The telecoms industry at the moment is going through phenomenal change, as an example. And where they were earning phenomenal revenues just 3 years ago, they're under significant pressure right now. That's changed so quickly, as an example. And they need to be sustainable, and we can see there are cases where there's certainly them aren't sustainable and are potentially going to fall off. Our team, we apply, first of all, we're a diverse team, and I mean a diverse team in terms of skill set. So we have within our team people who have got deep financial expertise, deep analytical expertise, but then we've got people who have got deep organizational expertise, so they understand how organizations work and come together and run and so on. And then we have those that have actually operated within the NGO sector, so they understand broader social change and what the impact of that change is. And we put all that together, and we're able to in fact really understand impact. Sustainability in its own right, again, I think is really just a catchphrase from that perspective, but a focus on sustainability means that every day we really are just not living for today. We're living for the future. We're anticipating the future. And it's those organizations that are able to get out of just today's operations into saying, well, how does the future look, and making sure we set up for the future.